All right, we should be live. All right, so welcome to our workshop tonight. This is a journey of shadow and light using the chakra system to accelerate your shadow work. So this is a second workshop. I have another workshop that's called Introduction to Shadow Work for Witches, Empaths, and Spiritually Minded People. So you can always check that one out too. It gives you more information on more of the shadow work aspect of this. Tonight's workshop will talk about both things, but we're also going to bring in information about the chakra system and how you can actually use your chakras and your knowledge about your own physical health and mental health and spiritual health in order to figure out places that you can do your shadow work. So we're going to start with a little intro to shadow work here for those who are brand new, and then we'll just dive into the rest of the workshop. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I have a slideshow for you guys for those who, just give me 1 second. There we go. For those who like to follow along to something visual, we are going to go ahead and start the slideshow now. All right, so this workshop is called Journey of Shadow and Light, and we're going to begin by talking about what the shadow is. So I always like to start my shadow work workshops with this quote by Carl Jung. Most people consider him to be the godfather of shadow work. And he said, unless you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. So whenever we have things going on in our lives, whenever you feel like things are happening to you and you're not really in control of them, oftentimes there is unconscious mechanisms working underneath the surface. And Carl Jung strongly believed that unless we were able to dive down deep into that unconscious and figure out what was operating there, there would be an aspect of us that would always feel out of control. So we're going to talk all tonight about how we can dive into those aspects and we can begin to acknowledge them and integrate them and heal them. And we will then feel that we have much more freedom and peace and calmness. There's a lot of really great benefits to doing shadow work, which I'm also going to share with you tonight. But let's start with what is the shadow. Those of you who've taken shadow work workshops with me before or are part of my shadow work membership, this is going to be a review for you. But for those who are new, I just wanted to get in here and explain a little bit about what the shadow is before we begin. So the shadow is essentially the rejected parts of our personality. And all people have a shadow, even those who tell you that they don't. So as you start to learn shadow work and you may start talking to people, they may say, well, I don't have a shadow. All that I am is light and love. And you'll see later, I'm all about light and love, but it's to our own detriment if we don't explore these deeper areas within us. And you'll see why by the end of this workshop. Now, our shadow forms in two ways, and it's important for us to note that both of these ways are natural. So this isn't bad stuff we've done. This doesn't make us bad people in any way. But so part of our shadow is created by roles and hats that we tried on and that we didn't pursue. So I always tell this story in my shadow work workshops about me as a little ballerina at age 4 or 5. I was enrolled in ballet school. I don't remember much about it, but it didn't work out. And I was sent home before the first day was over. And from that point on, there was always this narrative that something happened and I couldn't do it. And so years and years later, I still carried this narrative that I was clumsy, that I was uncoordinated, that I wasn't flexible. And so within me, though, exists this little ballerina that had some kind of a potential, right? And I carried this kind of limiting belief throughout my life because of this experience that happened when I was very young. So within us, we carry all of this. And so this aspect of the shadow is highly creative. And you can actually explore it through the chakra system. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. But there's so much creativity in that part of the shadow work and so much creative energy, that part of the shadow and so much creative energy. Now, the other part of the shadow is the traits that we carry that are shunned by our society, by our church, if we grew up in a religious household, by our parents, by our teachers. So these are the obvious things like greed and anger, rage, hate, lust, jealousy, sloth, selfishness, all the things that we push off to the fringes of society that we don't want to admit exist within us. But the reality is that we actually have these negative emotions and these negative feelings inside of us, and we tamp them down in an effort to not have those qualities that are shunned by society. Now, the shadow begins to form very early in childhood, which is why I say this is a natural process. It's nothing that we've done wrong. We all went through this. And what we do is, we're children, when we learn very quickly what qualities and traits are acceptable in our families, in our societies, in our schools, and which ones are not. So this creates a dichotomy between good and bad and right or wrong that actually doesn't exist, because the universe itself in nature is actually neutral. So even if we think about the hurricane that has hit Florida recently, last night, early this morning, nature is not bad. It's not doing bad things to us. It's just simply nature, right? In nature's nature, in order to be calm at times, but to ravage at other times. And we have these same feelings inside of us, which are also natural. But the perceived dichotomy of that right and wrong, good and bad, causes us to have distress. And some of that distress is very much unconscious. We're not aware of it, but some of it you may feel. You may feel that stress and that distress at times as well. Now, unconsciously, we're always fighting against this shadow, keeping it down, keeping it hidden, keeping it away from other people. We recognize it out in others, but we rarely truly recognize it in ourselves. And the problem here is that it creates this kind of vortex of energy that sucks it inside. And it takes so much energy to keep it tamped down or keep it at bay. And we could use this energy for something better. So in my mind, evolving spiritually or amplifying our gifts, these are all products of what can happen when we begin to truly heal and work with the shadow. But until then, we're wasting all this energy trying to keep something at bay, which is simply a natural part of ourselves, of all human existence. Now, during shadow work, what we do is we work to acknowledge and integrate those shadow aspects. So looking for places where the more negative emotions and the negative energy exists within us. So for example, one aspect that is sometimes thought of as very negative in society is aggression. But if you think about aggression, if you think about it out in the wild, and animals that are more aggressive tend to be the ones that live longer. And animals that don't have aggression in them often are the ones that don't live very long. So there is an evolutionary positive aspect to aggression. Now, we don't want it to go like untamed out there. We don't just want to fire off and be aggressive all the time, but aggression is a natural part of ourselves. So if we learn how to acknowledge that and integrate that, we can then facilitate it and push it into places that are more positive in our lives. So during our shadow work, though, we also sometimes realize that we're carrying things that actually don't belong to us. So that example before with aggression, that's a quality that we all carry in some degree or another. But sometimes we find out we're carrying things that were either ancestrally inherited or things that are carried in from past lives. And these are things that we can learn how to release through our shadow work as well. Now, we all wear this mask that we call the persona. We develop it very early in childhood when the shadow is beginning to develop. And this is like our likable personality. This is the face that you show out to everybody. And it covers up what we perceive to be our own flaws. Now, what happens, though, is that we eventually come to think that that mask is us. And the reality is that that mask is not us. And we don't really truly know who we are until we start our shadow work journey and we start to take off that mask. Now, before that happens, or for people who never actually engage in any shadow work, we'll find ourselves engaging in patterns and reacting in certain ways, and we will have no idea why we're doing it, or at least we won't fully understand it. We might be able to notice that there seems to be something wrong. I don't know why I just did that. I don't know why I said that to that guy, right? I don't know why I did that to that person. But But until we really peel back all the layers and get down into that those shadow aspects, we don't fully understand why we're doing those things. And so again, that brings us back to Jung's quote about until we make that unconscious conscious, we're going to feel like it's controlling us, and we're going to feel like we're being controlled by fate. Now, every once in a while, we glimpse some aspects of that shadow, but they're really only peripheral and fleeting unless we're doing this work. Now, once we start to do the work, and people in my membership, will tell you that you start to see the shadow more and more as you're going about your day, as you begin to integrate and acknowledge it, you start to see it more. But until then, we're really only seeing these fleeting glimpses. Now, there is this idea in society that if we just act positively or we just think positively, we can control the direction of our lives. And there's truth to that to a degree. But the problem is, until the shadow is faced and befriended, there is still that very large element that is out of our control. Now, we could change all those external factors. You could get a different job if you think your job is the problem. You could get different friends if you think your friends are the problem. You can get a different spouse or partner if you think that's the problem. You could change where you live. There's all these different external things that we can do, and they may make us feel better for a while. It's like putting a nice Band-Aid on it. But eventually what we find is that if we don't change the internal factors, we're not going to be fully healed. We need to start to initiate that change at the internal level, and that is essentially what the shadow work allows us to do. Now, rather than projecting everything out into the universe, outside of ourselves, we start to turn that light on inside, and we start to really, truly examine everything from the inside out. And there we start to uncover these shadow aspects, and once we do, we feel more whole and calm and peaceful. Now, I began my shadow work journey. I started studying shadow work in my 20s when I was in grad school. But I didn't really start my full diving deep into my shadow work until about 4 years ago. And I'll tell you a little bit more of my story later in the workshop. But I will tell you is that as I began to move down this path, I found myself becoming much more peaceful. Things that had bothered me before were not phasing me in the way they were. In fact, sometimes they would just go right over my head like it hadn't even happened. And these were things that would cause me great stress in the past. And we also find that our relationships improve. We're not as irked and irritated by other people. And many people who take the shadow work journey say it's like coming home to yourself, because you're actually finding your true self. And what I found, and what many others find, is that there's this extra bonus of an amplification of our spiritual gifts. So we may find that our intuition increases, that our clairsentience or clairaudience or clairvoyance begins to amplify, our claircognizance. So all of the clairs start to kind of come online and amplify. And so there is this spiritual nature to this work as well. Okay, so there are some methods that you can use for shadow work. Now, if you want to dig a little bit deeper into this and what I call priming and prompting, which is how you actually spur shadow work sessions, you can check out another video I have called Introduction to Shadow Work for Witches, Empaths, and Spiritually Minded People. You can find that on our Body, Mind, Witchcraft YouTube channel. So just search Body, Mind, Witchcraft and you'll find all of that. But I just wanted to go through some ideas for you if you wanted to start shadow work. Well, where would you begin? So they usually say the first place to start is with your triggers. So the triggers show us aspects of ourselves. We're not really triggered by other people or irked or irritated unless there's something inside of us that needs some healing. And so people say that the universe will actually gift us these experiences, these triggers, in order to say, this is something that you are ready to work on. So noticing where you are irked or irritated or annoyed, and then seeing if instead of projecting that outside as being another person or a situation, turning the mirror on the inside and saying, well, what could this reveal about me? That can be a beginning for your shadow work. Now, the other thing that we can do, especially as witches, and this is where shadow work for witches has a kind of extra caveat to it, is that we can work with the energy of the moon as well. So the waning crescent moon, in particular, the balsamic and dark moons, are the most optimal time for shadow work. Now, it doesn't mean you can't be doing shadow work at other times of the lunar cycle, but these times are especially good for shadow work. So if you can get into a habit of starting to do some practices as you move into the waning part of the lunar cycle, then you will notice that your shadow work is accelerating as well. Now you can work with gods and dark gods and goddesses, or gods and goddesses of the underworld. So there are many out there: Hecate, Kali, Baba Yaga, so many, Persephone and Nana. Any of these gods and goddesses that go down into the underworld are very good to work with, because especially in some of their stories, they are metaphors for the shadow, for shadow and the shadow work. So for example, Anana's own story, when she descends into the underworld and she goes through all those 7 gates and she strips herself bare as she's going through, and then she meets her sister Ishkgul in hell, in the underworld. Ishkgul actually stands in for her shadow. That's her shadow that she's meeting. So there's so much work we can do with these types of gods and goddesses as witches and pagans, that other people probably would miss out on this aspect of their shadow work. Now we can do self-reflection and active imagination, is what Jung called it. So this is, in some ways, it's like journaling, except that you're not actually writing. So what you do is you usually take some kind of a prompt or something you've been wondering about, and you just kind of slightly meditate on it, ruminate on it, and you see what comes up for you. This can be a really powerful activity to do during the dark moon, especially because you're more receptive to the energy, this type of energy at that time. Now you can do yin yoga. I like to actually do yin yoga and active imagination at the same time. Now, yin yoga, for those who don't know much about yoga, it is not like traditional yoga that you think of, which is moving through all these poses. So there are poses involved, but you tend to stay in them for like 5 to 10 minutes at a time. And what that does is it releases some blockages in the energetic body. So you become more receptive. And then as you become more receptive, you start to begin to have the kind of those aha moments that we would consider a session of shadow work. And so these things that might have troubled you for months and years, all of a sudden just become very clear because you have relaxed your body so much. And these yin yoga poses are usually very easy poses. Most of them are laying down or sitting and things like that. Now, another thing you can do is yoga nidra, which, despite the word yoga, that's just our idea in the West, that yoga is about moving and poses. Yoga nidra is actually a special type of meditation. And it's a meditation where you are induced into a light meditative state, sometimes a deeper one, depending on who's doing it. And then you are given series of opposites, opposite imagery that you go quickly through in your mind. And people who do yoga nidra over time, my own teacher, she said that just 2 or 3 months of yoga nidra for her was like 20 years of therapy. So it can be a big game changer. So I highly recommend looking into that if you're interested. Another thing you can do is inner child work. Great idea, because remember, the shadow develops when we're children. So your child, if you can befriend that inner child, they will actually help you on the shadow work journey. And you'll also reveal traumas and different things that you might have repressed when you were a child. We can work with the shadow and the light archetypes. The child is one of the archetypes. Archetypes are basically symbolic representations that we, at least when it comes to the personal archetypes, they're ones that we embody. So everyone has a set of about 12 archetypes that they embody at different times in their lives. And if we start to recognize the archetypes in other people and the ones in us and how they're interacting with one another, we can work with our shadow that way as well. We can do dream work. Sigmund Freud said dreams were the royal road to the unconscious. So this is a way that we can actually get in and get some messages from the unconscious. Now, unfortunately, the unconscious cannot speak in words. It speaks through symbols. So we have to get good in interpreting symbols. But over time, and building a symbol journal of our own, or a symbol dictionary of our own, we can actually get quite good at dream interpretation. And then another thing we can do is work with certain parts of the astrological chart. So looking for where your Chiron is placed and when it returns to the place it was of your birth. So if you don't know a lot about astrology, this is probably more advanced than you would want to do. But if you're into astrology, you might look at where your Chiron is, because the house that it's in and the sign that it's in will tell you something about your wound, and your wound is often something that can be healed, and that can have profound effects on your shadow work. Now, looking at some of your other returns, like your Saturn return, your Uranus half return, that can be another thing to look at, because it will tell you time periods when those are happening. Those are time periods where big shadow work can happen. And then also your past life astrology, because as I mentioned in the beginning, some of what we discover when we're doing our shadow work is actually coming from other lives that we've lived before. So when we look at our astrological chart from that perspective, we can start to see places where we can heal things that we carried in from other lives. And then at the end, shadow work, journaling, and prompts is probably one of the simplest things for people to do. It's so easy. You just Google shadow work prompts, and you're going to find hundreds and hundreds of these. And I would suggest just picking a few that you really like, or they seem to be speaking to you, and you feel like you might be able to get some work done around them, and then just start journaling and see what comes up. And if you don't like the journaling, the writing process, you can always do that active imagination, which is where you take the prompt and instead of writing, you just think about it. And then finally, we can work with the shadow side of the chakra system. And I shouldn't say finally, because there are other shadow work methods, but these are the ones that are the main ones that most people use. And so the rest of this workshop is now going to segue into how do we work with the shadow side of the chakra system. So why would we pair shadow work with energy work? Now, most shadow work programs and most of the shadow work information you're going to find out there when you're Googling is not going to consider the energetic bodies. So most of the time, you're going to be working on emotional issues and mental issues, which would be like limiting beliefs and thoughts, but they're going to ignore the energetic component here. But the problem is that our trauma that we've all experienced to different degrees, and our attempts to maintain that persona, which remember is your mask, those are creating blockages in the energetic body. And we're going to talk all about what that means in just a moment. Now, the traditional shadow work will seek to remove the blockages from the mental and the emotional body. So it's going to work to kind of get rid of some limiting thoughts and beliefs. It's going to work to heal some of that emotional trauma, but it tends to ignore the energetic blockages. Now, so if we work with the energetic body, though, what we realize is that we can experience a great acceleration of shadow work and the healing process. And we view that shadow work journey through the lens of the chakra system. What we notice is that there are multiple areas to do our shadow work. So one of the big questions a lot of people ask me is, where do I begin? I don't know where to begin. Where should I do my shadow work? And I usually tell them, start with your triggers, and, they'll start and they'll do some of that, but then they come back and now they're like, I don't know where to go next. So working with the chakra system gives you all kinds of directions. And you're going to see that in by the end of this workshop, you are all going to have several areas in your life where you can do some shadow work. You're going to know exactly where they are by the time we're done here. So I like to always bring this quote into my workshops as well. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. That again was said by the great Carl Jung. And so here, again, there's two kind of things happening in this quote that I really think are salient for our work. And one of them is that we don't become enlightened by imagining figures of light. So it's like I said, sometimes we think if we just think positive, if we just bring in love and light, everything will be okay. And while it might be okay for a while, we're not actually doing any of that deep healing that we need to do. There are people who say that shadow work is the easiest way to enlightenment. And so in that respect, Carl Jung believed the same thing. We're not going to become enlightened by just looking at the light. We got to look at those shadows as well. And so here we can segue now into how do we work with the chakras? The chakras are actually wheels of light. So a brief overview of the chakra system. For those who know nothing about the chakra system, I'm just going to do a brief overview so that as we move into the part where we're actually looking at the aspects of our shadow work that could be healed through the chakra system, you'll have a better idea of what we're talking about. Now, your energetic body, which is different than your physical body or your emotional body or your mental body, we have all these different bodies, these subtle bodies that go beyond our physical. Our energetic body is one of those many bodies, and it's made up of 7 major energy centers. There are minor ones as well, but 7 major energy centers that we call chakras, and 72,000 energy channels that we call nadis. Now, our energy is constantly flowing through these channels and centers, but the problem is it can get stuck or stagnant in certain areas of the body. Now, when people say I have a blocked chakra, chakras never get completely blocked. There's always energy moving, but the analogy I always use is it's like throwing some rocks in a stream. And so when you throw like a little tiny rock, the water's still going to go pretty smoothly. Throw a bigger rock in, well, now the water is diverting around it. Throw a huge boulder in, and now you just got this little strip of area where the water can go through. That's what our blockages are. And then our stagnant energy is just where the energy is kind of, it's there, but it's not really moving properly. Now, the chakra system provides a framework where we can heal all of these other bodies, the energetic body, the emotional body, the mental and the physical body. All of this can be healed to some degree through working with the chakra system. Now, the thing is that for us, and to me, your body, your mind and your body and your emotions are constantly telling you what to do. And we don't always listen to it, but the issues of our psyche, the issues of our physical body, they indicate that there are issues in the energetic body and vice versa. So what I mean by this is if you have some pain in your neck, for example, you likely have a physical cause for that pain. It could be a variety of things. Sometimes it's tech neck. You've been on the computer or your phone for too long. You pulled something in your neck. You slept wrong. There's often going to be a physical cause. But anytime that we have that pain in the neck, we also are going to have an energetic issue with the throat chakra, which in a moment, we're going to learn more about the throat chakra, but it controls our communication, our ability to speak our truth and be heard. So if we can look at this in tandem with one another and not look at it as just physical and treat the physical part of the neck, but also look at it energetically, we begin to accelerate our healing and we can move through these blockages. So this is why working with these different systems, energetic, emotional, physical, has such a profound effect on us rather than just acting as though they're all separate from one another. And then, as I said, exploring the chakra system and the chakras will in turn show you the aspects of yourself that need some healing. So here is a picture of the chakra system, just to have for reference. Chakra, the word itself from Sanskrit, translates to wheel or disc, and many people will refer to these as wheels of light. And though the chakras cannot be seen by the visible eye, it's at least thought that they vibrate at specific frequencies, which creates a perception of light of different colors. Now, when we work with color, that is one way to work with the chakra system. So if you want to know, one of the simplest ways to work with the chakra system is work with color. So if you think there's something wrong with the neck, working with the color blue can help. And it may not heal it all the way because there's other things you can do, but working with the color blue is one way to tap into the energy of the throat chakra. Now, the chakras are divided into 2 different sets with the heart in between acting as a bridge. And I'm going to go through those in just a second, but you can see how the heart is right in the middle there, anahata, and below it, we have the 3 lower chakras, and then above it, we have the 3 upper chakras. Now, that lower triad is the root, the sacral chakra, and the solar plexus. Now, these 3 chakras tend to be associated with more physical and material concerns. And many spiritual people actually have issues in one or more of these chakras. I know for me, I always have been very spiritual. I wanted to be a minister from when I was a little kid. And I know my bottom 3, I'm always working on them. So it's not going to be unusual for you to find that you're going to have issues with all 3, especially those of us who are watching this. Most of us are witches and pagans and quite spiritual people. So let's dive in and look at this a little bit more closely. So the root chakra is called Muladhara in Sanskrit, and it translates to root support. And that itself tells us a lot about what it's about. It's about grounding down and finding support. It's located at the base of your spine, and it vibrates with the color red. Now, each chakra has a series of tasks or a series of intentions that it controls. And so our root chakra is responsible for our feelings of security and groundedness, foundation, stability, and support. And the associated body parts are the very lower part of the body, the feet and the legs, the knees, bones and teeth, the anus, and the large intestine. So one way that you can notice if you have blockages here or you have some stuck and stagnant energy is to look at those body parts and ask yourself if you have any problems. So recently I had some very extensive oral surgery I had a lot of bone loss and some gum issues. And so for me, I knew that there was something wrong with my root chakra. And I was right, because, there was a lot of factors for it. I wasn't sleeping enough. There wasn't enough self-care. There wasn't enough grounding. I was working too much. And it manifested out into my body in the form of these teeth and gum issues. So that can be one way that you can kind of scan your body and ask yourself, well, what part of my energetic body is having some issues right now? Now, the sacral chakra is called Svadhisthana, and it translates to one's own place. It's located about 2 to 3 inches below your navel, right near the pelvis, the sex organs, and it vibrates with the color orange. Now, Svadhisthana is related to our movement, our flow. Can you go with the flow? How flexible are you? Expansion, emotions, pleasure, and passion. And it is one of our 2 creative centers. The throat is the second one. The creation of Svadhisthana is really more about earthly matters, where the creation of the throat is more about spiritual matters. The associated body parts are here are sacrum, hips, low back, and sex organs. So if you have any issues with any of these hormone problems, this would always indicate that there is some kind of energetic imbalance in the sacral chakra. And then we have the solar plexus. This is called Manipura. And it's the city of gems is the translation. It's located 2 to 3 inches above the navel, not actually right at your belly button, but about 2 to 3 inches above it. And usually you can find it by kind of moving up from the belly button and then searching 2 to 3 inches above for the most tender spot in that area. Now it vibrates with the color yellow, and it is about our strength and our will, our mastery, power, self-confidence, and self-belief. So if you have issues believing in yourself or being confident in yourself, putting your plans into action, there's probably going to be an energetic imbalance in the solar plexus. Now, the body parts here are the ribs, the stomach and digestive organs, and the adrenal glands. And so what people will find is when let's say a person is very nervous about something that they have to do, like they need to really muster up their strength and their will to do something really difficult, maybe to tell somebody something hard to hear, which can also involve the throat chakra. But any place where we feel like our confidence is wavering, what we will sometimes notice is it causes digestive issues. And this all shows us the interrelatedness of the energetic body, the emotional body, and the physical body. But if you have any issues with your digestive organs, anything in your digestion, you definitely want to look for doing some work with the solar plexus. And one thing I can just say is taking a probiotic can actually help with the solar plexus, especially if you're having digestive problems. Okay, so that is the lower triad, and many of us are probably going to say, yeah, I've got some issues in one or more of those. Now, the upper triad is the throat, the third eye, and the crown. Now, this triad tends to be more about spiritual matters, and many spiritual people find that these chakras, probably with the exception of the throat, because a lot of us have issues in the throat chakra, but many people will find the third eye and the crown are actually quite open, but they're compromised because of issues in the lower triad. So for example, people who say, I'm having trouble with my intuition, what will often be is it's not actually about the third eye, it's actually more about the root, because the root, there's not enough groundedness, there's some stability issues, maybe not feeling secure. A lot of this might be unconscious too, and that is compromising the ability to open up the third eye, but the blockages may not actually be in the third eye. So let's talk about the throat, though, because a lot of people have issues here. Vishuddha or Vishuddhi is the Sanskrit word for the throat chakra. It translates to pure. Located in the center of the neck, it vibrates with the color of blue. Now, this is about communication, but also about purification. And so doing breath work really purifies the mind and the energetic body and can really help us with the throat chakra. And I have a treat, because we're going to do a little bit of breath work and some chakra energy exercises in just a moment. I'm going to teach you 5 things that you can carry out of this workshop and you can begin doing right away that will help you move some of this energy. So there's that purification aspect with the throat chakra. It's about speaking your truth as well. The associated body parts are the shoulders. The shoulders are also related to the heart, but the shoulders, the neck, the throat, the tongue, the mouth, and the ears. Now, the third eye is called ajna. It translates to command or perceive. It's located at the center of the forehead and is thought of, it vibrates with the color of either indigo or purple, depending on the text that you're reading. Now here, this is about our intuition, our insight, guidance, wisdom, and clairvoyance. So if you feel that you're having trouble speaking to your guides, you're having trouble receiving guidance, you don't know what to do, working with the third eye can very much help, but it does have a deep connection to the root. So I always tell anybody who wants to work with guidance, is having trouble receiving messages, don't just go to the third eye, go to the root as well. Work with them as a pair. And then this is our clairvoyance as well. Now, the body parts would be eyes, the forehead, the pineal gland. Headaches are going to be an indication that there's an issue with the third eye. And headaches can be something very simple, like you're dehydrated. But one thing I always say about headaches, and I'm not a doctor, so I'll preface this with this, but if you do have a headache, rather than immediately reaching for the Advil or the aspirin, you think about what the cause of the headache could be first too, because we do get in this habit of just treating everything very quickly. We just want to get rid of symptoms, but symptoms are here to tell us that there's something in the body that we should pay attention to. And sometimes that's in the energetic body. So think about it first and then reach for your aspirin. And you may find that you didn't drink enough water, or you may find that you've been on the computer too long or need a new pair of glasses or things like that. But what you also might find is that you're having some issues with the third eye. And then we have the crown chakra, Sahasrara, which is a fun one to say. It translates to great sounds. Located at the top of the head, some people say actually literally on the tip of the top of the head, and then others say it's located a couple inches above the physical head, the physical crown of the body. And it vibrates with the color of violet. Some people say like white light as well. It is about our awareness, our connection, unity with the divine, our spiritual connections, and it also has the element of transformation within it. And its associated body parts are the head, the brain, the pituitary gland, and just the nervous system in general. And then that brings us to the heart. So the heart is the bridge between the upper and the lower chakras. And for this reason, many people will call the bridge the bridge between the heart, the bridge between the physical and the spiritual. Now, we chose a difficult time to incarnate in. And so, yes, we all chose to be here. I firmly believe it, and other spiritual teachers believe this as well. We chose this time to be here in this particular place. And it's a very difficult time. And so what that means is many of us carry deep wounds and scars in the heart. So clearing that stuck and stagnant energy out of the heart allows the energy from the lower triad of chakras to connect to the upper triad of chakras. And this can be very imperative in our shadow work, working at this center. Now, the heart is called anahata. It translates to unstruck sound. It's right here at the center of the chest and vibrates with the color green. It's about love, but especially about self-love. The heart isn't really about sexual love. That's more the sacral chakra. It is about self-love. So finding first and foremost within us a deep and unwavering sense of love for ourselves, compassion for ourselves and others and all of creation, and the disillusion of the ego and separateness. So this idea in the Western world that we are separate from one another and we are separate from the universe is simply an illusion. And so the heart, working through the heart, when that begins to expand and open up, we realize that that is an illusion. Associated body parts are the heart and the lungs, the circulatory system, the respiratory system, shoulders, arms, and hands. I have a lot of issues with my wrist. And while you would maybe not connect that to the heart chakra, that is very much connected to the heart chakra. So any issues with those body parts, just like any of the other chakras, if you have any issues in the body, you can look towards that chakra to see if there's areas that you could heal there. So what we are going to do here, this is kind of like a little pause in the workshop, and then I'm going to take you through each of the chakras in turn, a little bit more depth to show you how you could work with your shadow through these chakras, okay? But I want to start by just taking you through just a small little practice, and I'm going to teach you these exercises. We're not going to do them fully. I'm just going to teach them, show them to you, and then I'll recommend how long I would do them and how often I would do them, and then you can take any of these out into your practice that you enjoy. So the healing square breath is a very good breath. It is what we call a calming breath, and it can also be what's called a neutralizing breath. So what it does is it takes all that energy in the body and it calms it down and it neutralizes it. And so it's very simple. And what you do is you start by, you can close your eyes if you want to, and you breathe in for a count of 4. And then you're going to hold for a count of 4. And then you're going to exhale for a count of 4. And then at the very bottom, you're going to hold for a count of 4. So each of those counts of 4 is like one side of that square, which is why we call it the healing square breath. This one very much connects to the heart. It's very good for opening the heart, but it's good for just balancing the entire system in general. Now, if you find that the count of 4 is too much or too little, you can play with the number. You just want to make sure that the count is the same for each part of that breath. So you could count for 3, inhale 3, hold for 3, exhale for 3, and then hold for another 3 if you want. Or you could do 5. But most people recommend 4. So that's why I kind of open with that one. Now, this next one, the heart moving Kriya, I'm actually going to show you, and we're going to try it for about a minute here, because this is one where you're going to experience it right away. That healing square breath, though, definitely if you're into it, take that out and try that later. I recommend doing that for about 2 to 3 minutes, breathing in that way, and you will feel much, much calmness come over you. Okay, so let's do this heart moving Kriya together. So what you're going to do is, first of all, you're just going to bring your hands kind of near your heart. They don't actually have to touch the chest at all. And then we're going to start by bringing the left hand out to the side. You're going to bring it parallel to the ground. And you're going to inhale here. And then as you exhale, you're going to bring the left hand to the heart again. You don't touch it. You're just going to bring it right in front of it. And you're going to bring the right hand out parallel to the ground. And there you're going to exhale. So it's going to look like this. We inhale to the left, exhale to the right, inhale to the left, exhale to the right. You can close your eyes, and I say put a smile on your face when you do it. And then I'm going to actually speed it up, but you can slow it down at any point. You can just go as slow as this, or you can kind of speed it up. So we'll have inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. And what it does is creating a little mini twist for us too, which means that we're working with the solar plexus, moving some energy there, and we're also moving energy in the heart. And so what I recommend is that people do this. Obviously, I'm not breathing in the pattern because I'm talking to you, but you're going. And if you do this for about a minute to 2 minutes, one thing is going to happen is you're actually going to strengthen your arms over time, which is kind of cool. It's a little perk of that. But you're going to find that you're moving a lot of energy. So if you've got some stuck and stagnant energy anywhere in the solar plexus or the heart, this is going to get rid of it. Okay, we're going to go a little bit longer here, just so you can feel it. These exercises, is we don't want to do them just for like 20 seconds. I mean, you'll get a little benefit, but you're going to get more if we go, a minute, 2 minutes. And then at some point you're going to end, and then you're just going to bring your hands down on your lap, and see, already I can feel it. So hopefully you can feel that too. And you close your eyes here, and you can bring your palms face down for a little grounding. You can bring those palms face up for a little receiving. And then you're just going to breathe normally, and you're going to feel that energy in your body. And that energy that you feel, we call that the pranic buzz. And that's an indication that your energy is flowing. So you can do that anytime, especially if you have like some pain in your heart. I suggest trying that one. Now, the lion's breath I showed at our Kali ritual a few months ago. I think it was about 3 months ago. We did a ritual, and you can find this replay on our Body, Mind, Witchcraft YouTube page. It was a ritual to release negative energy and fear. And the lion's breath is a great breath to do whenever you have like negative emotions. Like, for example, I quit my job recently, and I had a lot of issues as I was quitting it with the person that I worked for. And so I had a lot of like negative energy that I needed to get out. And so I did the lion's breath over and over and over again. And so it looks a little crazy. So I would always just preface it with that. You just have to close your eyes and get over it. But you will inhale normally. And then when you exhale, you're going to stick out your tongue, and you're going to make a hissing noise. So and you can get really into it. Some people, one of my teachers, she bugs out her eyes. You can make a really crazy face, but you can get a lot of anger out this way. All those negative, hot emotions, you can get out this way. So you just take an inhale, and then you exhale, stick out the tongue, and just make that hissing noise. And sometimes I like to do what I showed in the ritual is I bring my hands together like a little bowl, and we're just going to empty out, like we're purging all that garbage out. So it looks crazy, but it feels awesome. It's very good for the throat chakra, very good for the solar plexus, and gets some energy moving. Now, the next breath is called the 3 sips in. And you can also do this. There's a version of it called 3 sniffs, and I'm going to show both versions. 3 sips in tends to work with the throat, and then 3 sniffs in tends to actually work with the third eye. And they have kind of a similar mechanism. So what you would do if we're doing the 3 sips in, you just be breathing normally. And then when you're ready, it will take 3 sips in. So you're just going to kind of sip in like a little bit air, and then a little bit more, and then a little bit more until you're at the top of the breath. And then you're going to exhale it all out through your nose. Okay. So it's going to look like this. Let's do it again. Now, if you want to try it with the 3 sniffs in, I got terrible allergies. And if you have them, it can be a little harder to do this one, but you can try it. But it'll immediately stimulate the third eye. And so it's the same idea. So you're going to breathe in through your nose, like a quick little inhale 3 times. So each time you're just bringing in a little air, a little more, and then a little more until you're at the top of the breath. And then you're going to exhale through the nose. So it looked like. And you can even start to feel it in your third eye if you do it a few times. So I would recommend a practice like that, 1 to 2 minutes, and see how that feels. But very good one for especially moving energy up here in the throat and the third eye and in our upper chakras. And then finally, there are the seed sounds. I just wanted to share these with you. Some of you who've taken other classes with me, I've shared these before. The seed sounds are connected to our chakra system. So each seed sound will actually activate energy of that specific chakra. So these are the Sanskrit words, but the A in Sanskrit is pronounced a. So this would be lum, which is connected to the root. So if you want to change the energy of your root, you literally can intone the sound lum. Lum. And it will immediately activate the root chakra. And so what some people like to do, this is actually a quick way that you can actually just balance your entire system very quickly. So you start with the root lum, and then you move up to the the sacral chakra, vam, the solar plexus, rum, the heart is yum. That's my favorite one. The throat chakra is hum. This is a very good one to, if you need to go speak your truth to somebody, or you have trouble speaking, you could try hum and just let it vibrate in the throat. And then the third eye is om. And then the crown is a silent om. It's just like a sound that reverberates in your own head. And so what you can do is you can go through this entire sequence once and then come back, and you do it as many times as you want. And that would just balance the whole system. Or you can, if there's a specific one you want to work on, you would choose the one for that chakra. So that is the seed sounds. Okay, so we're moving into kind of the final part of our workshop. So here I am going to go through the way that you can work with your shadow, or look for aspects of your shadow to work with through this lens of the chakra system. And so by the end of this part, you should know at least one place where you can do some shadow work. Okay, so viewing shadow work through the lens of the chakras. So a major reason that the chakras stay unbalanced is, or become imbalanced in the first place, is because of unconscious forces and beliefs. So unconscious things at work. So for example, if a person has an unconscious belief that they can't succeed at something, this will create a blockage in the solar plexus, right? So if we think we can't do it, you've heard that saying before, then you can't. You probably can't if you think you can't. But what that will also do is it's creating a blockage in your solar plexus, which is about your willpower and your self-belief and your self-confidence. So what that means is that energy is going to stay stagnant there until you work through that belief and its associated aspects, shadow aspects. Now, another example would be a person who has an unconscious fear that they will never make enough money to support themselves. So a lot of people have this fear, and for some, it's even conscious. They're absolutely aware of it. What that does, though, is that's going to create a blockage in the root chakra. And so that person's always going to feel like they never have enough. There's never going to be enough until they work through that belief, and then its associated shadow aspects. And that's how we can do this work, connecting it to the chakra system. Now, there are two complementary ways we can do this, and you'll find one way might work better for you, or maybe you like both ways. So in one way, what we do is you can identify perceived flaws, like the things that you think are wrong with you, your unconscious beliefs. You might be able to, some of those may come out, limiting beliefs that you're aware that you have, any shortcomings you think you have. And then what you do is you figure out which chakra is compromised by connecting it to that belief. Okay, so like I said before, the person who had the belief that they would never have enough, that's going to connect to the root. And then immediately they know root chakra is one of the ones I need to work on. If instead you have this belief that I'm always unlucky in love, I'm never going to find anybody, all my relationships don't work, that's your heart. So immediately you know your heart needs some work. Now, on the other hand, what you can do is you can search in the body, through your body, or even your emotional symptoms, and you can use that knowledge to then figure out what shadow aspects of the shadow self that you can work on. And so many people will find that they like one way or the other, or a combination of the two methods together. So what we're going to do now is we're going to dive in and we're going to look at each of these in turn. And so as I do this, just kind of as I go through it, take note. You can even write these down if you want, any ones that you connect to. And you're going to see, do you feel like you've got some healing to do in this chakra? And then it will give you ideas of where to work in your shadow work journey. So let's look at some themes of the root: security, survival, safety. So if you kind of check off any of these, I have issues with security, you're going to be working with the root. Grounding, the right to exist. Some people feel like I don't have the right to take up space. Now, common reasons for the blockage, which at this point, the blockage is already here. So do we need to know the reasons? Not necessarily, but I think it sometimes can help people have insight. So if you are someone who has had abuse, neglect, or abandonment, you likely have issues of the root chakra to this day that may still need some work. Accidents, surgeries, injuries. This could be when you're very young, especially when you're very young, you're probably carrying some of this residual energy, but anything recently as well. When I had my surgery on my mouth, that was immediately going to affect my root chakra, and I was going to need more work on that. Poor boundaries can also create issues here, and any inherited or ancestral trauma. Now, what you want to do is, if you feel that you've got a root chakra issue, Here's some areas to see if any of these resonate with you. Do you have a disconnection of parts of the self or the body due to trauma? If so, that's an area that you could start to work. So this is where you start to pinpoint. Now shadow work isn't some big, huge thing. It's now you have a direction. I'm going to work to try to connect the parts of myself or connect myself back to my body. People have deep-seated fears about survival. That would be a place to work. That's a direction for you. Repression of past experiences or feelings. You feel there's a lot of repressed energy that is there because it protects us at the time, but it is something that we need to bring out in the open probably at some point to see what kind of healing can be done. Now, you don't have to do all of these, but if you feel like you've got a root chakra issue, kind of want to look, is there a direction here that I could head with my shadow work? Extreme insecurity, which sometimes is disguised as judgment. So whenever we're feeling judgmental about other people, it's usually pointing towards an insecurity of ourselves. And we need to be really honest with ourselves too, because people will say, I'm not judgmental. Well, we're all judgmental in some way. Just scroll through a Facebook feed and just notice the things that go through your head about people and things that you're seeing. And that starts to show you where your own judgments are. And then any limiting beliefs or narratives that we have about money, abundance, prosperity. If you have any issues with that, that would be a place to work, a direction to work on your shadow work path. Now, as we move into the sacral chakra, themes for us to explore are pleasure, creativity, sexuality and desire, flexibility and flow. So you're kind of asking yourself, do any of these areas, something might be compromised for me? Surrender, do I have issues of surrendering? Emotional problems. Common reasons for the blockage could be sexual abuse. If you've been sexually abused, you will likely have an energetic blockage in this area to work with. Any shame regarding sex, and any shame, especially shaming of emotions. A lot of us are very sensitive. And when we were little kids, we were often shamed about our emotional expression. So I know I was, and I know from talking to a lot of people in Body, Mind, Witchcraft, I know that this is a very common thread for us because we were often born into families that didn't quite understand just how sensitive we were. It was looked at as though this were some negative thing, when actually it's great power. And then shaming of any creativity can also be here. So shadow aspects to heal, denial of emotions. So if you feel like you're not in touch with your emotions, trying to get in touch with them would be a place to work with your shadow. Denial of pleasure. I had a friend who died of an eating disorder. I would say probably 10 or 12 years ago. And she, even though she had enough money, she never would buy herself anything. And so she just was always denying herself pleasure. And so if she, could have worked through the sacral chakra, there was probably sacral chakra issues for her to work on there. And sadly, she crossed over. But denial of pleasure will definitely be a sacral chakra, an area to work on for the sacral chakra. Shame surrounding sex. So if you kind of feel that, that's an area that you could try to work through some of those blockages. Poor boundaries. If you feel like you've got poor boundaries, or you set up boundaries and people cross over them and you can't keep them firm, that would be an area to work on. Taken advantage of by toxic people. That's definitely an area. I know for me, that's one that I've had to work on with my own shadow work. Inability to go with the flow. If you feel like you can't go with the flow, there would be an area to work. Rigid thinking, can't get out of that like one mindset. That would be an area to work. And then anything that you feel like you're obsessed about, especially to an unhealthy degree. Now, the solar plexus, the themes here: confidence and self-belief, autonomy, will, power, vitality. So this one is about, do you feel that you have vital energy, or are you always tired even when you sleep? Are you always feel kind of down and depressed and not really having that vital energy in your body? That would be definitely a sign that the solar plexus would be something you want to work with. Now, common reasons here is the pressure to conform. That can come from your family or your friends. Strict parenting from an early age, punishment by authority figures. So like if a kid is punished by an authority figure or a parent over and over and over again, and they don't really understand what they're doing, or they're being punished for, you know, just being assertive, for example, you know, this can cause some huge blockages here, because if you kind of put yourself out there and you're punished or you're shamed, then you're going to learn that, well, it doesn't do any good to put myself out there. And then that can have ramifications for when we become an adult. And there's also cultural or society beliefs about power. So who is in power, who has power, is power good? What kind of power do we have? And so those issues can also cause problems, especially cultural and societal ideas that women or genders that are not the masculine gender have less power. So that is going to create some major blockages for us here, for all genders. Now, shadow aspects to heal. Abuse or authority of power. So this would be like, sometimes if we've been abused, we will kind of actually abuse others, like just slightly, you know, but you kind of know it when you do it. Like, am I using my kind of power over others, you know, as a way to kind of take it out on others? Narcissism. Now, this doesn't have to be your classic narcissistic personality disorder. This can also be like, are there areas in your life where you feel narcissistic? And that can be a place to search for some, you know, an avenue to work on healing. If you're easily manipulated by others, that's another area to work on. Unable to act on your will. So let's say you want to do something, but you're just not able to do it. Working through that can be a way to heal your shadow. Difficulty with decision making. I have this one too. I kind of get paralyzed and stuck sometimes when it comes to making a big decision. So this would be an area to work on, and you use that solar plexus to work through it. And allowing others to control major aspects of your life. So when it comes to making big decisions, or, you know, those major aspects of your life, are you in control of them, or is someone else? And if someone else is, then this is an area to work on, because we're not kids anymore, right? And then just that idea of feeling powerless. And then procrastination is a big one here too. Procrastination is often we're afraid to be wrong, or we're afraid we don't know how to do it, or something like that. And that all has to do with that willpower and that confidence and that self-belief. So if you find you're procrastinating, that's an area we can do your shadow work, and you kind of do it through the lens of the solar plexus. The heart chakra is about love, relationships, self-love, trust, forgiveness, balance, and imbalance. Where in your life are you imbalanced? Common reasons for blockages here is grief. We've all been through a lot of grief, but for those who've been through a lot, an excessive amount, you're definitely going to carry blockages here. Any abuse can create blockages in any of the chakras, but especially here in the heart and in the sacral chakra, usually. Betrayal and rejection by others can create blockages here, and negative relationships that we've engaged in. So how can we heal here? Well, look at the places. Are you holding grudges? Holding grudges is, it's not to let go of a grudge doesn't mean that we're necessarily forgiving someone or we're saying what they did was right, but holding a grudge creates a lot of negative energy inside of us, and it's not serving us to have that energetic blockage within. Feeling jealousy. So working through our jealousies, neediness or anxious attachment to something or someone, working through that. Any excessively strong emotions that we have. So like I mentioned earlier, many of us are very sensitive emotionally. And so people have told us all our lives that we're too emotional or too sensitive. But if you have strong emotions that are really excessive for the situation, then that might be an area to work through the avenue of the heart. Any addictions could be something, you know, you could work through your addictions and kind of dig deeper down into them. Like, why are they there? And shadow work can be a great place to do that. Being overly defensive can also be an area to heal here in the heart. Unable to move on from the past, and then kind of similarly clinging to relationships that are over. Keeping us in the past means that we're not in the present. And when it comes to relationships especially, it's going to impact the energy of the heart. And remember, the heart is your bridge between the lower and the upper chakras. So we really want to make sure the energy is flowing smoothly here. Now, the throat chakra is about communication, speaking the truth, self-expression, listening versus active listening. Listening is where we're seem to be listening, we're taking in some of it, but we're actually thinking about what we're going to say next, as opposed to active listening, where we're actually trying to analyze and listen carefully to what the other person is saying before we think of what we'll say. Now, common blockages here, or reasons for blockages, are verbal abuse, being forced to keep secrets for others, receiving mixed messages, or feeling like you're not being heard. Now, areas to heal here: lying. So if you find that you lie, that is creating an energy that's impacting the throat, that's an area that you want to probably work. Habitual exaggeration is also impacting the throat. So sometimes we find that we're always exaggerating a little bit. And while there's nothing inherently wrong with that, it does create an energetic blockage here. And we would really want to get down into the shadow aspect of this. Why are we exaggerating? Why do we have the need to do that? Passive aggressive communication, negative self-talk towards yourself. If you find that you're yelling or talking over others to be heard, difficulty speaking one's inner truth, and difficulty speaking in public. So any of these would be like areas that would then give you a place to start working. The third eye is about intuition, dreams, visualization, insight, self-awareness. The common reasons for these blockages are repressed memories that usually have come from trauma, a traumatic or chaotic environment, because third eye is also about our vision. So if everything what we're seeing around us is very chaotic and traumatic, it's going to create blockages here. A lack of spirituality, or kind of falling off the spiritual boat, or adverse religious experiences that we've had will definitely create blockages in the third eye. So where would we heal here? Well, you could see if you feel that you're lacking self-awareness, that would be an avenue to do some shadow work. Nightmares, always an indication that there's something amiss. There's some kind of energetic imbalance that we would want to look at. Nightmares are oftentimes dreams in general are the unconscious's way of getting messages to us. Nightmares are a way to get a message to us about something that we're troubled about or we're worried about. Now, oftentimes nightmares are not literal. And so, like I said, the unconscious speaks through symbols, not words. And so it takes interpretation to figure it out. But you can work through your nightmares to see if you can dig down and find those deeper meanings. And that can be a way to work with your shadow. Poor dream recall is also something to consider. If you can't remember the dreams ever, that usually means there's some kind of an impact with the third eye. So working through to figure out ways to recall your dreams better can be helpful. Strong attachment to any illusion of any kind. Something that you're kind of aware of isn't true, but you're very, very strongly attached to it. That can be a place to work. Shaming of other spiritual paths. So if you find that you are kind of just having disparaging thoughts or saying disparaging things about other spiritual paths, this one's a little complicated because sometimes there are religions that are actually doing some negative things at times, but in general, when we're shaming other people's spiritual paths, usually there's something for us to work on internally. And struggling to see a vision of the future. Sometimes people can't actually see my future at all. And so that would be a place to work, to kind of clear out that vision. And then feeling stuck without solutions. If you're like, I've got a big problem and you're not seeing that solution, working with the third eye and kind of taking care of that aspect of the shadow can help. And then excessive, that should say escapism. So excessive escapism can also be an issue with the third eye, and you can work through that. To a degree, escapism is absolutely fine. Like I said, we've incarnated in a very difficult time in history, but we don't want to be escaping so much that we're not living here in reality. And then finally, that brings us to the crown. There is a connection to spirit here, consciousness, belief systems, spiritual identity. Now, common reasons for blockages here: too much attachment to the material. There is no reason to not live in this world. Some religions actually, like if you think about Christianity, for example, The idea with Christianity is often to elevate yourself out of this world, to leave behind earthly matters, and to leave, right? And as witches, we know that that is not actually true. We know that there's actually divine and divinity here on earth with us. And so as witches, we try to kind of balance that spiritual with the material. But if we become too attached to the material, then we're not going to be able to elevate as much as we would like. And so we need some kind of a balance in this area. Spiritual abuse of any kind within a spiritual system or a religion, or from religious people or those in charge, negation of your beliefs by others. That can be definitely an issue for people. If you have someone in your life who's always telling you that you're wrong or you're stupid, to have that belief, that is going to cause blockages for you. And then also over intellectualization, that is bringing us more into the mental body. And in order to connect to the crown, we really need to be more in that etheric or energetic body. Okay, aspects to heal here, spiritual escapism. So if people are using their spirituality to kind of escape life, we don't want to completely escape life. We need to be here in the present as well. But if you notice yourself doing that, that would be an area to work. Imposing your personal belief systems on others. So if you feel like you're kind of imposing anything on others, any attachment issues that you might have, that would be an area to work. If you find that you have a need to be right, we all kind of have this. But if you feel like this is an excessive amount for you, like it's very hard for you to be wrong or admit that you're wrong, that would be an avenue to work on through the crown chakra. Any harmful or extreme limiting beliefs in general are difficult, but those really extreme and harmful ones, they need to be addressed, and they can be through the crown chakra. Lacking a spiritual life, if you find that you want to be spiritual, but you're lacking that, that's another area to heal here. And then finally, spiritual cynicism, so just kind of feeling cynical about spirituality. I would imagine that many people here would not feel that way, but I think if we dig down deep, we might find that we have a bit of that at times. Okay, so I wanted to end this. I'm going to give you a few benefits here at the end. And then for anybody who wants to hear about our Shadow Seekers membership, which is an opportunity to go deeper with some of this work, I'm going to tell you that at the end. But I did want to kind of end this part of the workshop with, what does a shadow work session look like? So the shadow work session is going to look and feel different for everybody. And so what we just talked about is how you're going to do shadow work. But most of that is you doing things, having methods that are going to prompt what I call a shadow work session. Now, during a shadow work session, you will begin to process an experience or an issue in your life in a different way. So what will happen is, let's say you're doing your shadow work, and let's say you decide that there's a throat chakra issue, right? And so you're working with the color blue, you're doing the seed sound hum, you are working on your communication, you're working on speaking your truth, and you're doing all those. That's all the practices, okay? So you're doing all that. And then what will happen at some point is you'll find that you've entered a shadow work session, and all of a sudden it's like an aha moment. It's like the sky opens up and you receive sudden insight. And this could be insight into a problem that has bothered you for decades. And you may feel that there's an incredible amount of work that was done, even though this only lasted a few minutes. But all of a sudden you know an answer to a question that you've had for a very, very long time. So that is essentially what a shadow work session looks like. And you might feel that you want to do some kind of a ritual afterwards to commemorate it, right? Or to release anything you want to release. But all the stuff we've talked about tonight leads to this moment, these moments of this clarity, which I call shadow work sessions, where all of a sudden you have that aha moment, kind of the universe opens up and gifts you the answer to something that's troubled you for some time. Now, Carl Jung said no tree, it said, can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell. Carl Jung didn't really believe in the Christian hell, as far as I know. But what he's saying here is that if we really want to ascend and elevate ourselves spiritually, we need to get down into the muck and the mire, into the shadow first. So the benefits of shadow work are so many. You can recover from trauma through doing this kind of work. You may find that you feel less alone. You can develop a deeper trust in your intuition. For me, that was a huge bonus of my own work. You can enhance your magical abilities. Again, that was another thing that I found. So I actually came, like I mentioned at the beginning of the workshop, I have been dabbling in shadow work since my 20s because it was something I learned in grad school. I have a degree in counseling psychology with a specific specialty in neuropsychology. It wasn't really until about 4 years ago I had an ectopic pregnancy, and unfortunately it was such a serious and severe one that I did nearly die. I had to have a lot of blood transfusions to save my life, and afterwards, through eating really well, I was able to bounce back physically very quickly, but the emotional toll that all this took on me was very, very deep. So in an attempt to heal myself emotionally, I dove as deep down into my shadow work as I could. I worked on my chakras. I was working on those directions and pathways of shadow work. And what I found, and I didn't expect this, but what I found is I did heal myself. I healed my heart quite a bit. And I found that I had such hope for the future, even after this awful thing that had happened to me. But the craziest part for me is that all of a sudden my intuition exploded, my magical abilities accelerated, and my life changed forever. And so for me, that was something that was very unexpected. And I believe it has to do with working with the chakras and the shadow work together, and being a witch and doing rituals along with it. And so I tell you that if you're looking for a way to increase your intuition and magical abilities, and you've tried all kinds of things and they haven't really worked, shadow work very well could be the game changer for you as well. Now, additionally, you can feel less alone, feel more wholeness and peace, maximize your powers of self-healing. You get really good at that. And also your ability to heal others, integrating all aspects of the self, healing your emotional wounds. It just goes on and on. The benefits of shadow work are so many. Understanding your underlying emotions and motivations, so you're no longer like controlled by all of that. Like Carl Jung said in the beginning, you're making that conscious, and it's no longer like you're being controlled by some outside hand. You can improve your relationships with others very greatly because of this work. Not be as affected by others' negativity and energy. It's like the things that once irked you just sort of go over your head and you're unfazed. And you can up-level your spiritual practice and alchemize the spirit. I truly believe, like some people say, shadow work is one of the greatest paths to enlightenment that there is. Okay, so for those who would like to know what comes next, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the membership. Once I'm done with this, then I will open up the floor to a Q&A, and people are welcome to, who are here with me live, you're welcome to put comments and questions in the chat. I'm going to go through and answer those. And you'll also have a chance to speak with me as well, if you'd like. But let me just tell you a little bit about our membership, because our membership is opening up again. So if you would like to work more deeply with all of this, if you're really interested in this work, if it feels like it's kind of calling to you, I invite you to join Shadow Seekers. So this is our shadow work and our energy work membership. Now, we only open the doors a couple of times a year. That may change at some point in the future, but right now we kind of open up, we take a few, I don't want to say a few, but we take a group of people in. We try to keep the group a little bit small, and then we will close it. And that is so that I can work very deeply with the people who are in the membership. And then we open it up at a later time. So we are open. As soon as this workshop is over, we will be open from now until Thursday, September 7th. So there is about a week to kind of think about it and join. And we'll be closing at midnight, Thursday, September 7th. Now, like I said, we have a limited number of spots that we accept every round, and we do expect them to fill up pretty quickly. They usually do each round. So if you're called to do your shadow work in a small group setting with a guide, I'm in there, I'm always working with people. I encourage you to join sooner than later to make sure that you get a spot if you want one. So our Shadow Seekers membership is for it's a membership for witches, empaths, spiritually minded people. You don't have to identify as a witch to join us. So some people are just kind of identify themselves as more spiritually minded or pagans or something like that. But if you feel like you're called to do this work with us, that is what our membership is about. So let me tell you more about what is included in the membership. So each month we have a live workshop on Zoom. And there's always a replay. So for one big question that people ask is like, what, I can't come live, what can I do? Well, we record everything. We have a membership portal where all of the recordings are stored. So there's never any worry about missing anything. Now, some of our past workshops, here are some topics that you would get. If you get all of this immediately when you join, as you're kind of waiting for the next live event. We have a workshop in there about the astrological chart. There's a couple of astrology workshops. One is about Chiron, the wounded healer, discovering the wound in your astrological chart. We are doing a series of workshops on the chakras. So if you liked what you learned about the chakras, we go in there in super deep depth in some of these videos, and we're going to continue working with the chakras. We have videos we have the root, sacral chakra, solar plexus, heart already in the portal, and we're going to be doing the throat in October. We're just kind of moving up the chakra system, and then we'll be looking at the shadow side of them as well. We have a workshop on exploring the ancestral wound, meeting the inner child, clairsentience and body intuition. There's a workshop on introduction to dream working for witches. Each month, we also have a live dark or full moon ritual. At this point, up until now, we've only been doing dark moons. That may change at some point, but the dark moon is the best time to be doing shadow work and releasing. So that's usually when our rituals will take place. We have a ritual with Inanna, descending into the underworld to face the shadow. There's a ritual with Odin, the wisdom of being the hanged man. That one explores the archetype of the hanged man through the lens of the tarot card. There is a ritual that we did over the summer, Amaterasu, transforming self-doubt, which is a really powerful one. This is the one we most recently did, the Morrigan asking the difficult questions. This ritual was a big one for a lot of people, for me too. I do this work with you guys, and this was a game changer this past month. So if you join now, you get all of what we just did this past month, including that ritual, which is very, very powerful. There's also a ritual for self-love. These are just some examples of some of what's in the portal right now. And there are replays of all of those rituals as well. Now, we also have a third monthly Zoom call. This is called our office hours. It's different than the rituals and the workshops. It's really just a chance to come in and get some extra help on what you're working on. Some months, it's just me and one or two other people. There's actually been a time when there was one person there. And so that's like getting a one-on-one session. But so usually it's a very small group, and it's just a chance to kind of interact and get extra help. And we also have monthly alignment practices. This is what I call priming and prompting. And these are just things that you can do to different meditations or yin yoga, breath work, energy exercises, mantras and mudras, just things to have in kind of your toolbox that you can use to balance your chakras and work through your shadow work. And we were having a hard time, especially like going into that little toolbox and pulling out a meditation or a breath work practice. And now you got something to do to kind of move your energy. And our members get access to all of our lives plus 12 months of replays. So coming up in September, so this is, if you join now, this is what we're going to be doing in this next month. We have, I'm really excited, and I timed this for all the new members who are joining in too, because I knew this was going to be a very popular topic. We are spending the full month of September on past life regression and past lives. So our dark moon ritual on the 13th of September, that's on Wednesday. It's on a Wednesday. Usually we try to have our rituals on Saturdays and Sundays, but when the dark moon falls midweek, we will do it midweek, and they take place at night, and we try to accommodate all the time zones too. This is a ritual with Mnemosyne. She is a Greek goddess of memory, and she helps us find our past life memories. So we're going to do a past life regression ritual. This is only the first time we're going to do past life regression. We're going to do more of it in the future as well. And then we'll do a workshop on Sunday, September 24th on past life astrology. We're going to look at a few parts of the astrological chart that will show us about our past lives. And you don't need to have any background in astrology to do this. I will show you how to make a chart free online, and you'll have a chart you'll bring to the workshop. And then I'm going to show you how to look at it and figure out some information about your past lives that way. And we have an alignment practice coming up. It's a symbol of healing meditation. This is a nice meditation that will give you a symbol that you can then use later to heal yourself and heal aspects of your shadow. And then we have office hours on September 30th. So that's kind of like a month, and that's what a month would look like. This happens to be September. Now, future topics that are coming up, we'll be working with the throat chakra in October. In November, in time for Samhain, we will be doing a workshop on death, loss, and grief, and how that impacts our shadow work and our energy. Eventually, we're going to do a workshop on healing the mother wound and another one on healing the father wound. And that can because these are big issues for people, I know. We are going to be doing workshops on the archetypes, all the different archetypes, which are the symbolic representations that we embody. Soul contracts. So if you've ever wondered what's your purpose, why are you here, we're going to be doing a series of workshops that will help you understand that. I'm going to be teaching a workshop on EFT, which is an energy tapping technique that you can move energy through the emotional bodies and let go of a lot of like stuck and repressed emotions. We'll be doing a workshop on yoga nidra. That's a special meditative technique that I told you in the beginning. My teacher said was like 25 years of therapy when she did it for just a few months. An interesting workshop we have coming up at some point, shadow side of pop culture and media. The pop culture and the media are very much showing us the shadow at all times. And we're going to learn Kundalini for witches, and how to move energy through your body more effectively. And you can actually use this for spell work and ritual work too. Breath work for witches. And then, of course, there's a whole series of workshops on the shadow side of the chakras. Oh, and discovering your dosha. I'm trained in Ayurveda. And so that was an idea. I thought we might look at that at some point as well. Okay, so a little bit about me. I feel like if you're going to work with anybody, and this is good advice for you, whenever you're thinking about working with anyone in the future, find out what you can about them. It's really important that you resonate with them before you decide to work with them. So I just want to tell you a little bit about me and my path, so you know my qualifications and why I'm here teaching. So I dedicated myself to the goddess on Litha morning, 1997. I practiced with my roommates for a few years when I lived in Boston. Eventually, I joined the Boston Pagan Alliance in 2000. In 2004, I moved to LA to pursue my music, and which was a great time in my life. My band toured up and down the West Coast. While I was here in LA, once I got here to LA, I dabbled in a lot of Western mystery traditions for several years. I dabbled in the OTO and Cor Lucius, which is an extension of that. I went to the builders of the Adytum services at their temple, kind of really dabbled in that. Eventually, I came back home to Wicca in 2008. I joined the Coven of the Twilight Moon. Now, I received my third degree in that tradition in 2011 and became a high priestess of my own coven in 2012. And then in 2015, I founded my own tradition called the Midnight Tradition and became the high priestess of Coven of Midnight's Flame. That's my current coven. My degrees and certifications, I have a degree in songwriting from Berkeley. And so I bring a lot of music into rituals and practices that we do. I have a master's degree in counseling psych from Northeastern, and I'm a 500-hour registered yoga teacher who specializes in meditation, yoga nidra, yin yoga, and breath work. I'm also a trained doula and an educational therapist and teacher by trade, which means that I actually have, I don't have teaching credentials because I teach at the higher levels, but I'm a trained teacher. And so you get that added bonus too of taking classes with me. I've been on my journey for many years. I've said a little bit of all of this earlier in the workshop. I started about 4 years ago when I had my ectopic pregnancy. I really dove deep into that shadow work journey. And to me, the stuff that I teach in this membership, and I kind of the trainings and the guidance that I facilitate, is based on the shadow work and the alignment practices that I did that got me out of that dark night of the soul, and actually gave me more hope as I get older and older. I have more and more hope for the future because of the practices that I have done. So this is a picture. It's just a graphic to show you the things you get, but we have the live monthly Zoom rituals and workshops. There's shadow work prompts. There is a private Facebook group, access to all of our replays, office hours, alignment practices, and there's a portal where all of this is stored. So your membership includes the dark moon rituals with the replays, one live one a month, a live workshop a month, monthly alignment practices, office hours with the replays. We have a private members only Facebook group, which I really love a lot. Like we're a small membership at this point, and it's a great place to just be in there. Like even if you can't come to the lives, the private Facebook group is a good place to interact with the other members, get help and support from me and from them as well. This is something we've talked a lot for a while, but haven't put into place, but we're hoping to do it this round, is setting up for those who want it. It's an option, is to opt in, and you'll be paired up with another person in the membership or a couple people from the membership, and you guys can figure out kind of what you want to do. But it's just nice to have another person going through it with you that you can talk to. Our membership also includes complimentary tickets to all of our Coven of Midnight's Flame online Sabbath rituals. So we do 8 of those a year. You get free tickets to those. We have weekly shadow work, prompts and exercises, access to all the past replays, and something new I implemented this month is a monthly challenge for the membership. So there will be something related to the work we're doing that month. If you finish that, you complete it. The tasks are pretty easy. They don't take up a lot of time. But if you complete it, and you fill out a form, you get entered into a contest for the membership. And we have different prizes that we're going to be giving away each month. And some of them are physical. We're actually going to mail you like a gift box of witchy goodies. There can be free one-on-one sessions with me, card readings I'll do for people. I make jewelry. We'll send you a piece of my jewelry, different things like that. So there's going to be a different prize every month. And it's cool to do your little challenge, and it just moves your shadow work forward that month. So there's testimonials. I'm going to give you the website in a moment where you can go and you can check out more of this information, read more about what's included. But over the years, we've had a lot of people. Our membership is actually 1 year old right now, but I've been training witches for the past 12, 13, 14 years. And so these are just a few of our testimonials that I've received over the years. And these are only a few of them, but just wanted to put those up there so you can see. These mean a lot to me too. Whenever I always almost cry every time I see them or I get to this slide, because it's just, I put a lot of effort into what we do here. I'm really invested and committed to helping as many people as I can. And when I receive this feedback from people, it just makes everything so worth what I do. So you can check out more of those on the website. We know that with all these features and benefits and the small group guidance from me, I'm well aware that this membership is well over $100 a month is what it's worth, I know. But we don't want to break the bank. And we've seen other people charge this much. I don't want to charge this much for it. So we offer this for $37 a month. But because this is our 1 year anniversary, we're bringing the price down $5. So if you will put in the code anniversary, if you're going to sign up and you put in the code anniversary at checkout, it will take $5 off per month. And so you'll have $32 per month going forward. And if we were to raise our prices in the future, you lock in that price and yours stays that forever. So, think about what you get, all of that, what you're getting for just about $1 a day. And think about the things you already spend $1 a day on when you're kind of contemplating this idea. But it's a lot of bang for your buck. And you can cancel anytime. We're very easygoing, and you just can't, if you're on the fence, you can always try it for 1 month. If it's not for you, cancel your membership after the first month. So when you join today, immediate access to the portal. So you have that right away as soon as you pay. You get 12 months of ritual replays, workshop replays, office hour replays. All of the alignment practices are all in the portal. You can browse them, you can watch them, and whatever you order, you feel called to at any pace you want to go. And while you're waiting for the next live event, which is on Wednesday, September 13th at 5:30 p.m. Pacific. That is our September dark moon ritual, Namastani, past life regression. And then we have the September workshop coming up, Saturn, past life astrology, on September 24th. So I just leave you with some thoughts. Wouldn't you like to heal your emotional wounds and trauma, develop a deeper trust and intuition, enhance your magical abilities, feel more wholeness and peace, maximize your powers of healing, self-healing and healing others, not be as affected by other people's negativity and energy, up-level your spiritual practice, and alchemize your spirit. So if you feel called to join us, we would love to have you. Like I said, we're a small group. It feels like a little family here. So what I'm going to do is oh goodness, that is not what we wanted to do. I was going to put the link in the chat. So give me 1 second here. Okay, so for anybody who's interested, who wants to go and check this out, I am putting this link there. Okay, and that concludes the end of the workshop. If you are with me live, stay on here, okay? If you want to, I'm about to stop the recording, and anybody who's live can stay on and ask me anything you want. For those who are watching us in replay or watching us on the Facebook live feed, if you have any questions, you can email me at aislinlumina@bodymindwitchcraft.com, or you can put a comment below the video wherever you find it, on YouTube, on Facebook, or through your email, and I will answer any questions that you've got. Okay. All right. For those who are watching us here back in replay, blessed be, and we'll see you soon.